Welcome to episode 76 of Going Live with Good Soil. Matt and I have been doing this every week on Tuesday at the same time. And it's posted on our YouTube live channel, our YouTube channel. It's done on YouTube Live, but also Twitter Spaces now, and it's recorded in both places. So every week it seems like we can't get another low, but we're hitting another low, and it seems to be corresponding with our live streams. It's brutal. I hate having to have these live streams with such terrible news for Tesla investors. I mean, the stock is disconnected from fundamentals, in my opinion, in the opposite direction of being a growth stock. Just when bears would argue it's disconnected, I feel like almost from a value stock perspective, it feels disconnected, and it's getting more disconnected. Down 6% today, when it was right at the open, it started tanking. Pretty incredulous. I mean, we'll get more into that. We typically start with the macro market. Yeah, Matt, what are your initial just brief thought on Tesla stock, and then we'll just talk about the macro market and get back to Tesla and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's just been drastically underperforming. I mean, the last 2 weeks or so in particular, S&P broader markets have been, rallying. Clearly this morning with the good CPI numbers that we'll get into in a little bit, that it seems like that was going to boost the stock. It was up like 5% pre-market, and then now here we are down 6%. So just can't seem to catch a break. So it's clearly underperforming. There's probably a lot of reasons for that, but it is kind of funny just at a high level. I mean, we were talking about using like a forward PE of about 50 to value the company, but now we've got a trailing PE of 50 being realized on the company, and that's just to your point about being disconnected from fundamentals. I struggle to see like a trailing 50 multiple be maintained over the next couple of years, or quarters even. So we'll see if that happens. I mean, I think the fundamentals would have to be really bad to sustain that, but otherwise you're going to be rolling off like Q4 of last year and replacing it with Q4 of this year, which will be a lot higher. And for the multiple to stay where it is, just seems like that's going to be unlikely. So I mean, it's just eventually, I think all this noise will die down. I was talking about this a little bit on live stream with Farzad yesterday. There's a lot of noise right now. A lot of people are really upset with Elon. The communication has not been great, but I really think, 6 months from now, this is just going to be like a memory, and the stock's going to be trading on fundamentals again.
I hope 6 months is right. I don't know. Well, we'll talk about that in a minute. Let's just first, I guess, there's a lot of cool things to talk about in this live stream. The Tesla stock price is everyone's mood sentiment. Probably who's tuning into this live is probably very stressed out about this Tesla stock price, moving down to new 52-week lows, below 500 billion market cap. But let's first talk about the macro, because there's some big stuff going on macro-wise. Is there a pivot tomorrow with the Fed? Are they going to signal the potential for a pivot in their next meeting at the end of January, first day of February? So the CPI print came out lower than expected. What was it? 10 basis points instead of 30 basis points month over month or something. Is that right, Matt?
Yeah, I think the CPI was 0.1%. The expectation was 0.2%, and I think the core was 0.2%. The expectation was 0.3%. So, I mean, if you kind of annualize the regular CPI, that's like 1.2%. But that's month over month. So if you look at it year over year, it's still pretty high. But you and I have been saying for a long time, I think month over month is really the way to look at this, because that gives you the indication of how inflation is trending from here. We already know that this year, 2022, is going to be up a lot from 2021. So what really matters is what CPI does month over month in my mind. So to me, that was the big news. I mean, we're kind of going at an annualized rate that's a lot more sustainable, kind of within the Fed's target rate. So gets to Elon's comment of like, if the Fed just keeps raising rates when inflation seems to have kind of leveled off, then it greatly increases the risk of recession in my mind.
And I tweeted out, like, just asking, we have such very sophisticated followers on YouTube and Twitter, and so it's a great resource to have at our disposal to ask questions, and people will step up and answer them pretty quickly. So I asked, like, can anyone strip out the owner's equivalent rent and say what the month over month CPI was? And a guy did the calculation. He said it's a deflationary 0.1%. So I think that's the real metric to follow, is what's the month over month CPI going forward when you strip out the owner's equivalent rent,
Mhm.
and I think that's
Yeah.
the best stat to follow in my mind.
I think you're right. I mean, because we know home prices are going down. I mean, it's very clear from looking at my market locally. I mean, everywhere the logic is just very simple. You've got a recession and you've got interest rates going up, which makes the monthly payments on a mortgage super expensive. So like home prices are definitely going down right now. And so for like the owner's equivalent rent to keep ticking up month over month is just it's like ridiculous. It's wrong. So that's interesting. I hadn't seen that tweet. So if it really is deflationary month over month, yeah, I think we're definitely going to be in a deflationary environment next year. At least I shouldn't say definitely, but the probabilities I would ascribe to it are a lot higher now than I would have guessed maybe
Yeah.
2 months ago. I probably would have said like 30% chance that it's going to be deflationary. CPI will be negative next year. I think at this point it's like more like 60-70%. I would say.
Yeah, it's high likelihood. Now, do you think that they have changed their stance based on today's report for what they're going to talk about, what they're going to announce tomorrow? Do you think it's already baked in what they're going to talk about tomorrow? I talked to one of our
Well,
followers who used to work within the Fed, one of the Fed regional, I think, offices, and asked his opinion. He's been very sophisticated. He mentioned that the Fed gets a preview, he thinks, of what the CPI is going to be going into their meeting today and tomorrow, and that so they'll have already decided anyway. What do you think, though, Matt? Do you think they're going to adjust and say instead of 50 basis points, let's do 25 basis points, or signal very
I
dovish
don't think
language?
so. I mean, so I think the 50 basis points, I'd be shocked if it's anything other than that. I think the markets are
It's like
ascribing like
80%
a
baked in or something right now.
yeah,
Eighty
and
percent
there's
is
like
not
a
100%. That still leaves room for
but
error.
there's the 20% chances that it'd be 75 basis points. It's not like it'd
Well,
be,
isn't it like 5% or 10% chance it's 25 and like 10% 75 or something?
I hadn't seen it that way. The stat that I heard was like 80% 50 and 20% 75 basis points. So I think it'd be very surprising if there's anything other than a 50 basis point hike
I
tomorrow.
agree. Yeah.
But what I think could move the markets is if they say, we're happy with some of the progress that we're seeing on inflation, and so we're going to be even if they just went back to being more data driven, like they were talking about 5 months ago, like if they just said we're going to be data driven on future rate hikes, I think that would really ease the markets.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think if we are going to see anything dovish at all, anything that moves markets in a positive way, it won't be the hike itself. I think it'll be the kind of language that Jerome Powell comes out with.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think, though? Do you have a different take on any of that?
I think they should be dovish. I think the fact that the market gave back everything today, that it started with on the positive with the CPI print, I think if anything, that influences them to be more dovish tomorrow. If anything at all today is going to influence them, I think that would influence them to have more dovish comments because they can be less afraid of creating a bubble-like market rally, seeing the kind of deflated rally today off of what appears to be good data for inflation, right? So that's my thought. If I'm inside the head of them, they don't want to let the market rally. They kind of want the market to kind of trade sideways or something. They don't want people to get exuberated excitement about the market and the economy coming back because that could, change inflation expectations or inflation or something. So I think they want to have people kind of bummed about the economy and think that like a recession is coming, even if it doesn't come, just to keep inflation in check to some degree. That's my thinking. It's, so
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of what he said. I think that was about a month ago. And if we basically screw up and hurt the economy too much, we've got the tools to fix that. But if we don't get inflation under wraps, then we're really in a hard place. So
yeah,
I think you're right. Like they're going to err towards raising rates too high instead of trying to master the soft landing. I think they've kind of given up on this whole soft landing idea.
yeah. And so, I mean, tomorrow's a big data point for the Fed. Let's see what the market does. Is it going to kick off a Santa rally or holiday rally? We'll see. It seems like we keep hoping for that or thinking that's possible around the corner, and it's still not happening. It's like when we finally are convinced it's never going to happen is when it's going to happen. But I'm not giving up hope, and I don't know. Maybe I need to give up hope. I don't know, and then it'll happen. But let's go on to the. I mean, your brother-in-law has been doing great thumbnails, by the way, the last couple of weeks for our YouTube channel, and the title of this YouTube channel is Elon. Like Tesla's the big thing. Elon's very controversial. Let's talk about Tesla. I mean, the stock is tanking right now. the title of our YouTube, weekly live stream, I suggested should be is Elon Musk stepping down, right? And I think
Mhm.
the title for that is catchy, but I think it's a realistic possibility that in the eyes of the public, he would like to be seen as stepping down. He recognizes my thought is he recognizes all the controversy he's generating and how how he's being thrown in the fire politically by both sides are starting to hate him like he envisioned, and that he doesn't want to damage his babies, SpaceX and Tesla. SpaceX already in good hands with Glenn Shotwell. He sort of stepped away. He's not really, there's no call to like stop government funding or NASA funding of SpaceX or anything like that. But there's lots of call. Like he's still in the public perception, he's still heavily tied to Tesla. But if he
Yeah.
steps down from a public perspective and gives the CEO role to Tom Zhu, for example, then maybe there can be a decoupling in the eyes of the public perception over the coming weeks and months of Tesla and Elon Musk. So as he continues to push the needle with Twitter and free speech and what he believes in, knowing he's going to piss everyone off, then maybe it hurts Tesla less from a brand perspective if he's sort of decoupled from there as a CEO role, even though we know, that he would still be play a heavy role as chairman of the board and decision maker of product architecture. He'd still maybe tweet about it from time to time, but maybe a lot less because maybe he knows he needs to decouple himself from Tesla. What do you think about that idea? What do you think about that theory?
Yeah, I mean, even just in the comments on YouTube here, we've seen so far like overwhelmingly negative about Elon, and that's never really been the case in the last year and a half that we've been doing these. I think people are so fed up with the fact that he's been stepping in controversy. I mean, he's directly related to, or he directly caused a pretty significant share price decline just with the way that he sold for this Twitter acquisition. And on top of that, like after shareholders experienced all that pain, he's continuing to step on like political landmines and causing a lot of anxiety that I think a lot of people think is probably unwarranted. So the fact that there's even in this community of our viewers and our followers, which is overwhelmingly pro Tesla, that you've got this much kind of anti-Elon sentiment, to me that says a lot. That the time for him to be seriously considering that is maybe now more than ever before. I think
I'm not
he
opposed
does.
to it. He wants to be Elon, do his thing. I think that if there's another universe where the Tesla stock price did not crash as hard, and if the actual stock price was staying around $200 plus or 250, let's say, and it went from like 300 to like 250, and if it's just traded in line with the Nasdaq, even or a beta of 2 versus a beta of 10 in the last couple of months, then I think people would be a lot more understanding and have a lot more. Give a lot more tolerance to what Elon's doing and the controversies he's causing in the media. But I think we're tied to our money, like our wealth is so important to ourselves. Obviously it's like the top priority of so many people is to have, the appropriate wealth they need to survive and live the life they want. And when you tie that up in Tesla, and now you're losing money on Tesla every day more, and you're attributing it because Elon's doing this or saying this about whatever and causing negative headlines, you connect the dots and you say, well, the Tesla stock price is falling coincidentally or in a correlation with Elon doing this. So it must be cause and effect. And it might be cause and effect. I don't know for sure. But, there probably are some marginalizing, marginal institutional investors who are like, I don't want to touch this Tesla. It's too controversial with Elon there, and so maybe they're lightening up their positions or reluctant to buy shares at these prices, even when sellers are selling. So, maybe there is cause and effect, or maybe it's just a correlation. We don't really know for sure, but in another, parallel universe, if the stock was not tanking and it was trading in line with NASDAQ the last couple months, I don't think everyone would be nearly as upset. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with that. It's become very emotional. I mean, Farzad asked this question yesterday. I mean, if Tesla was at 250, 300, do you think people would be upset with Elon, even if all the antics were the same? And I think like for sure, people would not be nearly as upset. So, it's like people are definitely feeling the pain, and they're lashing out at Elon, and I think a lot of that's probably deserved on his behalf. I think it's understandable the reasons that he's doing things. If you know the way that he thinks through problems, I think it's really entirely consistent with the types of problems that he's trying to solve. And he thinks that this really is a existential crisis. This whole kind of wokeism and free speech. You can feel free to disagree with him, but I think he's like consistent with the way that he tackles all these big problems. He thinks this is a really big problem and it warrants big action. But like I think if we were in much better financial position as investors, I really think everyone would just be like, oh, Elon, like I wish you wouldn't upset people, but not like calling for him to step down or just being so kind of over the top upset with him and to levels that we haven't seen before.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm curious though, like with the big move down today. I mean, it was obviously up quite a bit pre-market and at the open, and down 6% now on huge volume. I know you've been tracking the volume a lot lately. Do you think there's a chance that Elon is selling some more right now?
It's possible, but I don't think so. It's possible. I'd say we get a Form 4 for Elon selling the last couple days, yesterday or today. I'd say that's like 10 to 25% chance. It's like not tiny, but it's not likely in my opinion, but it's still substantial. That's my guess. So I don't think he is. It wouldn't surprise me totally if he did, sell a little more because he wanted to just have enough cash to shore up Twitter's position for the next couple of years or something like that. But I know I saw last night that SpaceX is, the rumor is that maybe Elon's offloading a little SpaceX to raise some capital at a 140 billion valuation, according to a Bloomberg report. So, he might be finding other ways to raise a little bit of extra capital to help, foot the bill for Twitter and lower interest expenses on that and just shore up the debt there. And I'm not sure. What do you think? Do you think he's selling?
No, I agree. I don't think he's selling. I think it's always possible, but I would agree that it's pretty unlikely. I'd say well below 50% probability. I kind of agree with that range you put out there. So could be the case, but I don't think he needs the cash urgently. So for him to sell at this point doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Yeah, but I have been looking at the volume. We touched on it yesterday. The last several days, like the last week or two, since he's really stepped up the controversial tweets, I've noticed that the average trading volume of Tesla, is around 80 million shares, but there's been like 90 to 95 million shares traded every day. So more than the average trading volume of Tesla every day for like the last week or two. Today is exceptionally high. But if you look at the other growth tech stocks, whether it's NVIDIA or, a bunch of stocks in our repertoire we follow, including Apple or whatever, if you look at any other tech stocks basically that are popular, you can see that the last 2 weeks, the trading volume each day has been below the average trading volume, like maybe 70% of what the average trading volume has been. So Tesla has been abnormally high relative to all the other growth tech stocks the last 2 weeks. So to me, that signals that this controversial tweets that Elon's bringing about, with getting and talking about pronouns or whatever he's been talking about, like the Twitter files, Fauci, calling him a fraud, signaling that, and, the Trump banning, just, really messing with anyone who has any remnants of Trump derangement syndrome is really upset with Elon at this point, probably too.
I think it's beyond like it's Trump
beyond
derangement.
That.
It's like
Those
COVID.
people are especially pissed, but then those
for
are the
sure.
higher. But then everyone else is getting upset too, and so you're having you're having people lighten. I think you're seeing portfolio managers and retail investors probably to some degree giving up on Tesla and saying like, there's lots of great stocks. There's no reason we need to have Tesla. Like let's just lighten up our load. It's too risky, and it's decoupling Tesla's valuation. Like Tesla's PE is below Chipotle. Like Rob Maurer tweeted that yesterday. It's like ridiculous. Like now it's well below Chipotle after today. It's like. And that's not even the forward P. That's
an interesting spread trade. Short Chipotle, long Tesla. I want to look into that.
It seems insane. And if you're a long-term Tesla investor, it should not matter whatsoever. Like we know the long-term. The only thing long-term Tesla investor I'd be worried about is Elon upsetting some of his good engineers or some of his top engineers getting upset by this kind of anti-woke stuff that Elon's trying to profess, and are they going to leave Tesla because they're annoyed with Elon? That would, as a
Yeah.
long-term Tesla investor, that would be the main concern I have. I don't know what Farzad
Yeah.
is in the comments still, but I'd be curious if he,
Yeah.
knowing all
And
do you think some would leave because Elon's doing this stuff?
I mean, I did see Martin Vieca actually liked a lot of tweets recently that were kind of critical of Elon's take on like the Fauci COVID stuff. So like
Yeah,
I think it's very clear that some people within Tesla don't have like the agreement with Elon. I mean, it's kind of one thing if you're like just attacking the wokes or like people that are like 10% of the population, but like he's attacking all these different circles of groups. So now that like if you like really think that the COVID thing was handled well, or if you are like just a Democrat, like I think he's kind of pissing off all Democrats now instead of just like the most progressive far left Democrats. All these different circles of people. So now it's like well more than half the population. I think he's offended in some way or another recently.
yeah. Yeah, Farzad says he thinks less than 1% of the engineers would leave because of Elon's controversial stuff. He says most of them are just too busy to even care about that. And that makes sense. We're in our investor shoes. That's what we look at. We're watching CNBC or CNBS or Bloomberg or watching FinTwit tweets all day. And so and we're in social media. Most people aren't in this like level of detail with what Elon's doing every second of the day, like we are, or what he's saying. But I think it's a real concern, and you see the stock price getting to new 52-week lows.
It's like 2-year lows now. It's
Yeah,
like we're back to 2020 levels.
Yeah, you can't argue with that fact. Tesla's at these lows around the same time. Elon is being very controversial. It's very disheartening as a Tesla investor to see that, and gets you very frustrated. And long term, it is not going to make a difference, but short term, it's hard to weather this storm, especially if you're using margin or options. It's very stressful for that segment of our business. It's really stressful. It's tough. On my personal side, I hold mostly Tesla shares on my personal account, and really almost no margin loan. I can cover it anytime, basically the margin loan. But so I'm feeling safe, but it's still disappointing to see my net worth continuously go down to new, it's lower and lower. So I think as a long-term investor, you can't be that upset. That in the end, Tesla's going to grow, to be whatever it's going to be. But for a year, I could see this going on for a year or two. To be honest, I could see Tesla's PE getting. I mentioned it on Dave Lee yesterday, his channel. I could see the PE getting ridiculously low to like 10 or 5. Just because it's such like, don't touch that stock. It's too politically divisive. Like every institutional manager's like, yeah, great company, but great product, but that one's way too crazy. No one, don't touch. It's blacklisted from our portfolio. It's like, I can see that happening potentially. I don't, and some people will dip their toes in, but they'll be burned as it continues to crash down. And there will be a time period where it comes back up eventually, but that could be, I think it could be a year or two from now. It doesn't have to be in 6 months. I don't know, man. You're a little more optimistic though, right?
Well, like a 10 PE to me doesn't make any sense, let alone a 5. I mean, I obviously multiple compression can continue to happen, but in my mind, to have the stock get down to like a PE of 10, that just like I would really struggle to understand that. That's
I would. The only way I can understand it is if it's just like so politically divisive because Elon's still associated with the company, and everyone hates Elon, and like that they're just like, don't touch it. Our investors will hate us if we touch it, because all our investors don't want us to, just like oil and gas. Don't go into, Philip Morris, or don't go into, the Vice stocks. Like Tesla's seen as like such a bad, like tainted image with Elon pissing so many people off. Like that's worst case scenario. I see that as a possibility. I don't think it's likely, but I see it as a possibility.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I mean that would be like we're at like a 50 trailing PE right now, so that would be going down 80%. Like I just don't.
I don't think it would happen right away. I think it would happen over like 6 to 12 months, and Tesla's fundamentals would grow at the same time. So maybe the stock price would just be like, because their fundamentals are growing so much, their revenue bottom line is growing so much, maybe their stock is cut in half from here, 6 to 12 months from now.
So if earnings doubles and the stock is cut in half, I mean that's just.
Yeah,
that's like that's kind of what
that's sort of what.
Yeah, but
happened.
then like that PEG ratio would be like a 0.2 or something like that. Just like absurd.
Yeah,
So
it'd be absurd.
like
But
I
didn't
don't
that
I
just
really don't think that's
happen?
possible.
Didn't it
Like,
just happen the last few months where the revenues sort of doubled and the PE got, you know, put cut
well,
by
PE getting cut
80%?
in. Oh no, because like I mean, the trailing PE at one point was like 233 or
Yeah, it was
something
like
like that. I
it
think
was
it's hot,
not
but
even
that's
yeah,
like when you're just turning the corner on profitability. So like
yeah,
PE
yeah,
at that point is not super impactful.
yeah.
Um, but I think there's just enough value traders out there, and
I
like
would hope so.
hedge funds, and that, like, I think if you get to the point where like you could just go on like Bloomberg and do like a search for low peg ratio companies, you say, oh, like Tesla's at a peg of like 0.5, like sure, let's just buy. So
Yeah,
I
most
really
people don't
think,
even know what PEG means. I hardly know what PEG means. I just know it's like a good number. I have to see the formula and calculate it in my head to really like compute it. I still have
yeah,
to do it again. Like I know this is a statistic that shows the growth, but I don't mathematically. I have to like work out the numbers in a formula and put it on paper a few times to really compute. I think most people are sort of like that with the PEG. Like I know you've done it in models enough to like understand it fully, but institutional managers are more in line with you. They're doing this stuff regularly. But I think from the average investor perspective, it could be seen as like, you know, an untouchable investment. Like you don't want to touch that, like I
yeah,
think it could be so bad, the branding. And that's why I think Elon knows he needs to step down as CEO. I think there's that rumor. I think I wouldn't be surprised if there's
the
truth
Tom
to that
Zhu.
rumor with Tom Zhu. Yeah. I think maybe it was
Yeah,
floated out there a little early to kind of get the sentiment and make sure everyone didn't get super upset. And now maybe possibly it was floated out there on purpose just to, see what would happen in the reaction and people didn't get, I don't know, but maybe it wasn't floated, but I think it wasn't denied by Tesla, so Tesla China didn't deny
yeah,
it, just clarified it a little bit, right? But or the news organization clarified it with their sources. So I think there's a realistic possibility Elon's around the corner from stepping down. And maybe that's what that urgent board call was the other night that he had on the, he had an urgent board call and he's late to a Twitter Spaces. And he's like, yeah, an urgent board thing. Maybe they're getting ready to officially show that Elon's not the CEO anymore, global CEO or something, has some other role, techno king,
yeah.
they
I mean,
make up.
I think it would be a good thing for the company. I think it would be a good thing for Elon too. Like Elon doesn't like all the kind of day-to-day responsibilities of being CEO. He's been very clear that like he likes the product design part of it. So I think if you do have Tom Zhu step forward and kind of take over automotive, leave Elon in charge of AI, and
Yeah.
eventually probably find someone to manage the like energy side of the business in a more senior role.
Yeah.
And have Elon be chairman,
Makes
because
sense.
I think he can be
Yeah.
chairman with that SEC settlement, but not chairman and
Yeah.
CEO.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I think, and I think that would really cause a lot of positive sentiment change.
Yeah. What if the
Uh,
stock goes up 25% in one day on that news? I could see that, right? I could see the stock zipping
I
up.
could see that too.
Yeah.
I mean, you could and I don't think they would announce that until like the Q1 call. So like a little over a month from now, or sorry, the Q4 call.
Yeah.
But if like I could see that you've got decent Q1 or Q1, keep wanting to jump forward to Q1, decent Q4 numbers, and like a good transition plan, and Elon's going to still be around, but more on like a design and like long-term guidance, strategy guidance.
Yeah.
Uh, kind of capacity, and he's distancing himself from being the public face of the company in a little bit, and you've got a guy like Tom stepping forward and handling all the
Manufacturing,
yeah,
ramping up of all the factories. I mean, it seems like that's his forte. Shanghai, look what they did. They're the gem of Tesla. If they can reproduce that type of efficiency and manufacturing ramp at their other factories, that's gold right there. So he rightfully earned that spot in my mind. I've heard great things about him. I've tried to watch some videos. I don't know if he speaks English. Maybe he does speak English, but I don't see any interviews of him trying to speak English. But it would be interesting to see him take that spot.
yeah. Yeah, it's so funny how everyone's kind of got behind this idea, but yeah, we haven't heard him talk. Like, I really don't know like much about him at all, honestly, other than like Tesla China obviously is doing a very good job. So
Yeah. I hope at the next chance someone gets to ask him this about Tom Zhu, like say, hey, there's been rumors of Tom Zhu taking over as global CEO. What do you think? Is he, worthy, or is it someone you've been thinking about? That could be the person. What was at the deposition recently? One of the board members said that Elon's picked someone to succeed him or something like that.
Yeah.
So maybe it's Tom Zhu, and Elon's comfortable with that, and maybe he'll. I'd love to hear someone ask him that in an interview coming, because he does these off the cuff interviews on Spaces or wherever. Every few days now, it seems like. So we'll find out. Someone will, probably sooner or later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never seen the sentiment in the comments so negative. It's like the last couple of weeks it's been tough, but like it's like we hit some turning point today, and everyone's just like so mad and like so frustrated about all this stuff.
I would think almost everyone who's following us, unless you've been a longtime investor of Tesla, which I would say more than 80% of retail investors in Tesla, nominally speaking, not like net worth wise, but just nominally, like number of retail investors, I'd say 80% of retail investors have bought Tesla in the last 2 years. What do you think, Matt? Or initially bought their Tesla in the last 2 years?
Initially,
2.5 years.
Yeah, probably. I mean, that
Does that
seems about
run up?
right. I mean,
That
I
run
just think
broader than
in
so many
terms of
retail
like
investors.
the Twitter community. I mean, back when I was tweeting about this stuff for the first time, like in 2019, it really felt lonely. Like the number of people who are still around from those days relative to, well, like the percentage of today's kind of Twitter Tesla users that were active in 2019, at least that I knew and followed, is like very small. So if that's any indication, I know that's anecdotal, but it definitely seems that interest has really picked up on the back of just the stock rallying so hard. So I think
70
and probably
to 70, 80%, let's say, because
that
but
sounds
that
right.
means 70, 80% of people are probably significantly underwater at this point, with their Tesla investment. But almost any tech stock, you're underwater if you've held it that long. But Tesla in particular, you're underwater. And so people are annoyed and upset.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Farzad said Tesla started diving when he quit Tesla. Yeah, Farzad, you shouldn't have left. You would have been the new CEO in line. Maybe could have been, and I'd vote for Farzad to be CEO of Tesla. Run the ship. Yeah. No, really though. I'm sure there's a lot of great engineers there. So a lot of qualified people, and whether it's Tom Zhu or someone else, the guy who in charge of the semi program, or Drew Baglino, or I'm not sure Zach's ready to be CEO of a global company, but there's lots of qualified people. And if Elon can, this is so in this time of kind of crisis of Elon's own personal branding, if he can disassociate himself from Tesla in the public perception, that would help the stock. I think, if you're a stock, I don't think he's helping the stock price is all I'm saying. I think he knows that about himself right now, or what's going on too.
Yeah, I'm curious. What do you think about his tweet about all the criticism? He's got to be aware that this sentiment is really taking a nosedive. But he's just responding that the valuation is the NPV. It's not anything to do with all this short term noise. I mean, he's in a way he's kind of doubling down, right? But I'm curious what you thought about that.
I think he's speaking to long term investors, and like we've been talking about, if you're a long term investor, he's just speaking to you like there's nothing to be worried about. Yeah, that's sort of my interpretation, and I believe that. But if you're depending on this money that you're investing in Tesla in the next couple of years to like retire in the next couple of years, or you have a margin balance, or you're using call options to try to get outsized gains on Tesla business success, then you're really in pain, and you're really. But Elon doesn't like that. He's spoken out against margin or option. He thinks. Yeah. He wants long-term investors only. And so I think that's all he cares about. So if you're a long-term, and unfortunately, a lot of the retail investors have been getting involved in, FOMO trading with margin, meme stocks, call options. Call options are insanely popular, so it's sort of been brutal for people who have been playing in those games, and, us included. And it's been a tough year. So yeah, all of us doing that, it's easy to get so upset with him as the stock's tanking, but if you're just a long-term buy and hold, like Ron Barron type investor, then you have nothing to worry about. That's what I think he's trying to say.
Yeah, no, I think you're right.
Yeah. Eventually, Tesla will buy back their own shares or issue a dividend. Eventually, worst case, that's what would happen. The PE can't get too low for too long because Tesla will just buy their own shares up.
Yeah, and I think that's still coming. But I keep wanting to make all these predictions of, oh, things will turn around here and there and there, but I just the the last year has not been so great for for my predictions on when things are going to turn
Yeah.
around, either on macro or on Tesla. So,
Yeah. And
which
so
long
going
term
back,
though, you're right.
yeah, long term, there's nothing to worry about. If you're in for the long haul and you're waiting until 20, I think Elon liked a tweet from um, the guy who Dylan Loomis earlier, and Dylan does a great like daily YouTube channel along with Rob Maurer. Those are the two top daily 10-minute YouTube channels, I'd say. And it was something to the effect of like, yeah, the year is 2030. All Tesla investors or shareholders are gathering for a party of how well they've done, and he liked that tweet because it's true.
Yeah,
In 8 or 9 years, this is going to be like, remember that time when Tesla's PE dropped, absurdly low because of Elon taking over Twitter and changing that course or what, we'll talk about it, but it's filtering out a lot of people that just don't have the, don't want to stick around or are so upset they're going to sell their Tesla and stay out of it. And we'll see. So Tesla in China, though, Q4 deliveries. China shutdown, that's on our list to talk about. That's sort of ending, right? The China COVID shutdowns are ending
yeah.
officially.
Yeah, it seems like the policies are definitely softening there. So I think the risk of like a Shanghai shutdown is a lot more muted now than it was maybe even a month ago. So I think that's definitely a good sign that the government actually appears to be listening to the people about how painful and harmful, frankly, those the kind of zero COVID policy and all the shutdowns were. So I think that's good news. But then that just leaves the demand question, I think, still unanswered, which is, I think, one of the major fundamental questions hanging over Tesla stock right now. It's probably important to note that it's not all kind of Elon controversy that's related to the stock price, decline. This all really started with the Q3 production and delivery report, which was the first kind of inclination that there was a potentially serious demand issue.
Mhm.
Those concerns seem to be adding up. The China numbers have been, I would say, reasonably positive so far, but definitely not like a home run. We're definitely seeing wait times worldwide lower than they have been all year, and inventory levels are at levels that they haven't been at for a while. So demand is, I would say, a semi-legitimate concern right now.
Yeah,
But
in China in particular.
in China in particular, US a little bit, but it's really just a timing issue with the Inflation
I
Reduction
agree.
Act. So like
Yep.
I'm not really worried about that at all. And the funny thing about this to me, I mean, I'm curious like what you think, but 6 months ago, we kind of knew that the 6 month lead times they had, this massive backlog was kind of unsustainable, and they raised prices explicitly to like eliminate that backlog. Now they've done
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
Um, and so like we're back to kind of what the normal wait times were, a year and a half, 2 years ago. And people are freaking out all of a sudden, like, oh, there's no demand. And
Yeah.
to me, it just seems like a little bit overdone. And we've been modeling price decreases because as you're continuing to increase production, you're going to have price decreases. So in my mind, like nothing about the way that this has been handled is a surprise, but the market
Yeah.
is acting like it's a huge problem. So I'm curious, how serious or not do you think demand is for Tesla in the short term and all of next year?
Yeah, I don't there is a point where Tesla is gonna grow its supply big enough where demand wait times aren't gonna be 6 to 12 months again, like, that's where we're at. We're transitioning to, okay, they've grown their, supply capability or their ability to manufacture Teslas to a volume, where there doesn't need to be a 6 to 12-month wait anymore, and now it's like, "All right, get your car right away," or in some markets, it's still within 3 months in certain parts of Europe or, Asia Pacific, but and in the US next year, it's probably going to get to a maybe it'll be a 3 month or 6 month wait time again because of Inflation Reduction Act, demand creation. So I think it's just recognizing that, there is going to be, supply and demand is like the most basic economic principle. And you only have so much of a total addressable market at that price point. And then you have you have, What was the law that Ark always talks about?
Wright's law.
Right. I keep thinking Frank Wright. I don't know why. Wright's law.
Frank Lloyd Wright's law.
Yeah, or Frank Wright, the football player, the old, from Buffalo Bills. Anyway, so Wright's law, which means as their manufacturing like doubles again, then their cost of goods manufactured goes down, proportionally, and so they'll be able to lower prices again to increase the total addressable market. So at some point, they kind of come in line, and I think just that curve of when it gets to line, it makes people a little nervous. Like, how close are we going to get to that kind of inflection point where demand and supply are matched and gross margins are, you're not going to get above this point anymore. And but I think the technology is increasing, the cost of goods is going down, the global economy is going to recover from the recession it's currently in my view, especially in China. It's really struggling right now, but now that they stopped the COVID lockdowns, I would think, and 2023 is going to be a much better year for China's economy. So I think I'm not worried about the demand. I think it's to be expected. Tesla is sort of transitioning from this like ultra high growth stock to like, a very good growth stock that has incredible margins that it can sustain. And it's building new products out, between full self-driving and the bot. So I'm not so worried. It's just transitioning from the perspective that it has like this infinite demand backlog to now like, okay, there is a quantifiable demand of the current price point, technology value proposition it offers, so I don't know. That's my thoughts in a nutshell. It's just a transition of perspective. I mean, Apple had to transition to that perspective, every major company, and look at Apple. It's the biggest company in the world, right? So it's not like Tesla has to have infinite demand forever to become the biggest company in the world.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And yeah, it's just that like there's so much room for improvement just within the fundamentals, but then there's still the stuff that I think we're not talking about as much anymore, which like all the Musk options of FSD being solved and the Tesla bot. And like I think in this environment, people are giving like zero credit for those providing any economic value. And in my mind, that's a mistake. So
Yeah.
like the fundamentals, I think are just going to continue to improve. I mean, even in this tough macro environment, I think it'd be very surprising if we don't see very meaningful earnings growth going forward, and free cash flow and all that. And so it's just I as painful as it is in the moment, I am very, very optimistic about the future.
Yeah, I am very optimistic about the future. My long-term Tesla shares I hold, personally, I'm very optimistic about that. The option stuff we deal with, it's very tough. It's very uncertain.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I feel for everyone who's trying to be risky and do risky things, but that's why I've always kind of said in Dave's interviews or other interviews, like, just take a certain percentage of your investment account and compartmentalize that to do the risky stuff. Don't involve your main, bucket of investing into the risky stuff, because the risky stuff can turn to zero, and that's what we're seeing, So
Yeah.
anyone who's been doing kind of riskier things is seeing that deteriorate fast, these last few months, especially. So it's brutal for that.
Yeah, I mean, we were down, 20% earlier this year. It seemed like, okay, that's like leaps are looking cheap now, and all like then if you did that, like those leaps are down a lot more than
yeah.
Everyone
Everyone who's been buying call options on the way down has been wrong, right? So how much longer are they going to be wrong? I don't know. So painful. So all right, well, we had some other things, a guy, Matthias Fons, tweeted a short 2-minute clip of my experience at the Dave Chappelle, Chris Rock show and Elon's appearance, which was kind of cool. But so we won't talk about that unless someone asks a question. But we've gone on a while. Let's go to. Is there anything else you want to touch on, or should we just kind of spend the last 20 minutes on Q&A? Do you think?
Yeah, I think we should do that. For those who didn't see that clip, I would highly recommend it, because I think there was probably some misperception about what that Chappelle thing was actually like, and Emmet was there. So I'd recommend just getting that. But yeah, let's go to Q&A.
I'll retweet it right now, just so if anyone's looking at Twitter, I just retweeted it right now. It should be, if they're following me and I'm not muted yet, then it should be at the top of your highlight timeline if you do things in chronological order. All right, so let's go to Q&A here. First Q&A from Tesla Uber Ride on Twitter. How does the recent Elon Twitter noise affect the Tesla brand outside of the United States in both short and long term? I don't think the Tesla brand outside the United States is affected very much, to be honest. I think it's all inside the United States. What's your thought? I don't think in Europe even they're really like upset about it.
In China, they're not on Twitter, so like I don't think it's a controversy there.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Europe, I don't know if they care about Fauci or all this stuff. So I don't know. I think it is. We're certainly U.S. centric in our views, and so that probably does
And the
impact
U.S. is less than half of the customers now of Tesla, isn't it? I mean, China is such a huge portion.
I think that's right.
So when you think about it, it's such a huge Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, and then like you've got the Inflation Reduction Act, which I think is going to be like massively more impactful in terms of being a demand lever than any tweets that Elon might have. I mean, that I was talking about this with Farzad yesterday a little bit. Like the number of people who are going to change their buying behavior based on Elon's tweets, I think is relatively small compared to the number of people that just want an EV or will buy because the IRA incentive is there and makes it it's just a good product. So I really think that this is mostly noise. It's so detached from the fundamentals. Sure, it has the potential to impact the fundamentals in a little bit in a small way, but I really think that it's a little bit it's blown out of proportion in my view.
Yeah. Next question from BB Qued Veggies on Twitter. Barbecued veggies. Oh, sorry. Barbecued veggies, all lowercase letters. I had to put that together. Barbecued veggies on Twitter. Do you think China's reopening will lead to a second spike in inflation as another wave of demand comes online? That's an interesting question. I haven't thought about that. I don't think so. Maybe some inflation within China. I don't know.
If anything, I might think the opposite, because so much of the inflation started off as like the supply constraint.
Yeah.
So, I think the fact that these logistics are being figured out now, and like the shipping rates, which is such a ridiculous, cost increase. So no, I really don't think that this reopening is going to cause a second spike in inflation. The thing I think I'd be more worried about is the energy costs in Europe. If how this winter pans out, and is Germany and the whole kind of continental Europe going to have enough natural gas? I think they are, based on everything I'm seeing from all the LNG exports that came from the United States. So I think they'll be okay, but to me that's a bigger risk than China reopening in terms of inflation.
Yeah, I see Elon Musk tweeting the last few minutes. Yeah, responding to Shibatoshi Nakamoto about comments about how on Mastodon. I don't know. I'd be curious if anyone. I haven't used Mastodon. Does anyone in following this on YouTube? I think we have a few hundred people on YouTube right now. 500, 600 people. Can anyone using Mastodon on YouTube who has used Mastodon confirm if it's like just an anti-Twitter cesspool there, where everyone just hates on Twitter and Elon mostly? That seems like it's just like a big giant app for a giant thread of hating on Elon and Twitter, according to what Shibatoshi Nakamoto is saying, and Elon's laughing about it. So anyone in Twitter comments who uses it, I'd be curious what their experience is on that.
I think I joined it like a year ago or something like that, and there was just nobody on it, and I was like, all right, well, that's dumb. So I got off.
Yeah, I'm not going to use it. Anyway, next question, and while we wait for the comments. Question from Evan Glansman. People are really worried about Tesla, macro effects, and Elon's distractions, but how do you think other companies like GM, Ford, Rivian, and Chinese companies fare next year? I think it's going to be a tough time for the recessions destroy competition, and that it doesn't have as good, doesn't. I think GM just got a loan from the federal government to build out their Ultium battery plant, $2 billion or something I saw. So they're not doing so well financially to get loans from the government for that stuff.
After the government already cleaned up their balance sheet 15 years ago, it's just like, the amount of economic damage that GM has done is just, it's so infuriating.
But it's unions, it's unionized workers. Come on.
Yeah. I'm going to hold my tongue on that one, but
yeah,
I agree. I think the point that Evan's getting at here, though, is legitimate. It's like we're so focused on, how bad Elon is, all this stuff right now, but look at their competitive positioning compared to their peers. I think they're really in really good shape. And I think if there is like a huge, like let's just pull a number out of the air, say a 25% drawdown in vehicle sales next year, those are going to be like vastly the vast majority of that reduction is going to come from ICE sales. So those are the companies that are going to get hurt. It's like the question is how much might the growth rate of EV sales be hindered? It's not like will EV sales go negative. Like that's not going to happen. The growth rate is still going to be positive. It's just a question of how positive will it be. So that's like if there's a recession, like GM, Ford, they're in a lot of pain potentially.
Yeah. Next question from Carl Branco. Austin and Berlin ramp seems painstakingly slow. Is this true or just my perception? I have thought that from the beginning that the Austin Berlin ramps would not be as fast as Shanghai. And it's hard to, I mean, it feels slower than Shanghai, but what do you think, Matt? Is it about the same pace as what Shanghai's ramp was, or is it
No, it definitely seems slower. I haven't done like the quarter by quarter kind of comparison, but it definitely seems like the Chinese, the Shanghai factory was ramping a lot faster than Berlin and Austin. So yeah,
I think in China you just have way better regulation capabilities. Like the government can just move fast, and you don't have to cut through a bunch of red tape to get things done. And I think that the work ethic is the best and among the best in the world in China versus Berlin and anywhere in the U.S. That's my thought. Yeah. All right, next question. All right, this is from Brandon Chisa in the YouTube comments. Which would be better for Tesla stock long term? Elon steps down as CEO of Tesla, or Elon steps down as CEO of Twitter?
Why not both?
Both. Yeah, maybe both would be the best long term. I mean, you get a Tim Cook style. Maybe that's what Tom Zhu is. I don't know, but you get some kind of Tim Cook style efficient COO running most of the major, manufacturing operational stuff, stays out of the limelight, doesn't say anything controversial, acts like more of a NPC character that most CEOs are supposed to act like, So I think you need that to have a Tesla stock that gets an appropriate valuation. Although as long as Tesla isn't, I don't know if that's the case, to be honest. Maybe at some point the markets will come around to letting Elon be Elon and giving that extra value as opposed to a discount. Because for now and for the foreseeable future, I see the market in general giving Tesla some kind of discount because of the Elon factor, because of his controversy. But at some point, maybe they'll come around and it'll be the opposite again. I don't know. What do you think, Matt? If he's quiet again for a while?
Yeah, I mean, so I think regardless of what happens, like the Twitter stuff's going to die down eventually. Like this is so fresh still, like the changes that he's running through at Twitter and like obviously ruffling a lot of feathers. And plus he's just spending so much time and attention because that's like, he's got to triage Twitter. Like that's clearly like a very urgent situation. Otherwise the cash burn is just going to get out of control. So like that's where he's directing his attention right now. And that's what's getting all the media focus. So, but I think, in the long term, which is what this question says, I think it probably would be better if Elon steps down as Tesla, because I think Twitter is going to blow over eventually anyways. And the having a long-term succession plan in place, I think that's something that long-term investors have wanted anyways. Even if you don't want Elon to step down as CEO, you still want to have a good succession plan in place and understand that, if God forbid Elon were to be hit by a bus tomorrow, that there's somebody who's like, groomed, ready to kind of take control. And we just haven't had that clarity. We still don't. There's this Tom Zhu rumor, but it's not, it's not clear that, he's got that time. So I think in the long term, it'd be better if Elon stepped down as the CEO of Tesla. And but I do think both would probably be helpful at this point, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I mean, even if he steps down, I still want him in control of Tesla,
for sure.
Behind the scenes. Yeah. Let's be clear on that. We don't want him to step away from Tesla.
No.
We just want public perception to be that Elon is not the CEO of Tesla anymore, and that he doesn't have to do all the more in particular, he doesn't have to do all the administrative crap. He probably has to sign all this junk stupid paperwork and regulatory stuff as CEO as a publicly traded company, and that's eats up his time too. So I think other people can do that, and it frees up more of his time to work on product innovation or engineering decisions for directing the company. And he would still be ultimately in charge, chairman of the board. But yeah, I think stepping down as like the public perception global CEO of Tesla would be helpful to let someone else run all that operational stuff the CEOs do.
Yep. Yeah, no, that's a good point. This is not like we've lost faith in Elon and he
No,
needs to
not
get
at all.
out. It's not
And I
that at
think
all.
he's been saying that. I think he believes that too. He's known that for a while too,
Yeah.
So. From Farzad, how you doing? What if all this selling pressure are new shorts? Yeah, there's got to be a way we can measure that in retrospect when the Nasdaq puts out their every 2-week publication of shorts on record. So every time I think that's not usually the case. There could be some marginal. My guess is there's some marginal new shorts coming in to Tesla to kind of get a quick buck on kick a weak stock while it's down kind of thing. But I think those shorts are typically short-lived, and if that's the case, Tesla, would bounce back sooner than later. I don't think it's like I don't think it's new like billion-dollar hedge fund shorts that are like shorting X $100 million worth of Tesla at this price now because they think the stock's going to go down to sub $100, soon or something. I could be wrong. I think those shorts have kind of been incrementally coming in just periodically over the last several quarters anyway, creeping back in, but maybe some of the ones that creeped in the year before exiting at the same pace. I don't know, but yeah, my feeling is that it's not like a bunch of long-term shorts. If anything, maybe day trading shorts to help create the volatility in the stock price. Like right now, it just rebounded back up to like $162 from 156 or something in like the last 15 or 20 minutes. So that could be like the day trading shorts covering as the whole market sort of stabilizing, for example. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, I don't think it's, I mean, to have this large of a movement to be caused by shorts, I think that's probably pretty unlikely. One thing that I do think is interesting, though, I've been following some of the Tesla Q, Twitter people lately.
Yeah.
And I would say their analysis is still as horrible as it's always been. So that's kind of one thing that's kind of giving me comfort is, people are saying like, oh, I retweeted this thing about somebody was saying like all Tesla's like short-term focus is like finally coming back to bite them. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like short-term focus, like they've been building out the long-term kind of, fundamental manufacturing efficiency. Like they've been making these investments for years. And so it's just so funny that these people who have been wrong for so long, now that the market is moving down, not because of like Tesla's fundamentals falling apart, but because of macro and a combination of, Elon's controversies. It's just like hilarious. So I don't know. That does give me a little bit of confidence. It's feeling more and more like 2019 to me, where just like my view of the world and what the future is going to look like is seemingly becoming more and more disjointed from like popular opinion. And so that was a good thing in 2019. I hope it's still a good thing in 2022. But to me, it seems like so far that it still is that Tesla Q, it has it wrong yet again, but we'll see.
And I really, there's still a lot of Tesla Q anonymous handles, but I think when the stock's going down like this, you see more of the non-anonymous folks that are Tesla Q come back out and not be afraid to like say, yeah, Tesla's like, should be shorted. And I love how Tesla charts that Tesla Twitter handle, like Tesla Historian is their Twitter handle name.
Oh my gosh.
I love how they're recording all this stuff and to show it in the future. Like, hey, this person said this 2 or 3 years ago. That person said that 4 or 5 years ago. Because I think we're getting a whole new round of that right now. That, 2 or 3 years from now, that Tesla, Historian will be able to resurface and show us all that. To try to hold them somewhat accountable. Like you had Bill Ackman who was saying that, like, I kind of believe in Sam Bankman-Friedman or whatever. Like he's.
Oh my gosh.
When I saw Bill Ackman tweet that, I was like, oh my gosh, I just lost all faith in you. Like, I was already suspicious when he was like tweeting all these warmongering posts about the Russia-Ukraine. Like he was like so pro like war in Russia. that I was always like, you're sort of extreme to that end, man. I don't know. Like I thought he was pretty smart, but I wasn't sure. But then I see this SBF thing, and I was like, yeah, I don't think so. And now it's like proven that there was like a signal, group that they called wire fraud. That did you hear about this? They used the Signal
No.
app. A group of employees, Sam Bankman-Friedman, had used the Signal app together because that's like the most secure, private thing, encrypted thing. But they had a group chat in there called Wire Fraud that they would communicate with each other of how to get money out when things start hitting the fan. Yeah. So this guy's arrested now, and his dad's showing up with him to like court, and like he's just like a big kid now. Like he's made a mistake, but he's 28. He was a billion. It was crazy. I can't believe this. This is going to be a great, Netflix or HBO documentary or something soon. So I'm excited for that to get the big picture details down.
Yeah, it's fun. Like, I think if you were to just do a public poll on like what is your general opinion, positive or negative, of Sam Bankman-Fried compared to Elon Musk, I bet Musk would have like worse marks on that poll than Sam
Yeah,
Bankman-Fried, which
I
is
bet so.
crazy.
It is
Like the
crazy.
guy,
Well,
like,
definitely the news media makes it look worse, right? But people, the
for
public poll will
sure,
probably reflect. Yeah, they would probably be what you're
because
saying. They
people are
probably.
just like not like my mother-in-law was asking me about Sam. Like, have you heard of this this kid who like lost some people's money? Like, what's the story there? And I was like, yeah, like he didn't just lose money, like he stole their customer funds and was like,
Yeah, it was like giving
explain
it
the whole
away to
thing. And
politicians, and
it's like I don't know why people have been so hesitant to like call it fraud. Like if you it's not just like, well,
yeah,
we accidentally got a little too much margin loan. Like, no,
yeah,
if you actually were securing your customers' deposits the way that your customer agreement said that you would be, then it would not have been possible for you to lose their funds. So
yeah,
it's just crazy to me that how disjointed like public perception is from reality with those two in particular. Because he's
yeah.
like, oh man, he's just a joke. I was on a Spaces, Unusual Whales had a Spaces with him yesterday, and I heard him speaking for a little bit. And I was just like, I had to turn it off because I'm like, this guy is just like, I don't know whether he's just like got some like mental disorders or whether he's just like so cold and calculating that he's kind of playing dumb. I really don't know, but
Yeah.
he's a hot mess.
He is. He is.
Anyway,
Yeah.
sorry, I
Anyway,
get off my Sam
no,
Bankman-Fried.
he's crazy. Chris
It's
McGinnis
just
says, "Red alert! Insane market squeeze coming. Leaks of a full Fed pivot and a no rate hike coming." I don't believe that. I'm curious if that's true, you got to tweet the source of that guy. So I'm curious. I hope that guy Chris tweets that source. He just or puts in the comments. He just put it like a minute ago. So I wonder if it's probably some false rumor being floated out there that some people are buying into. But I'm curious what the source of that would be if that's true.
well, hey, Tesla's up 5% since you and I, or $5 since you and I started talking. So at least for this one,
Yeah.
1 hour time period, it's actually gone up a little bit. We
Yeah.
might have marked the low
Maybe we marked the low
when we
That
went
would
live.
be episode 76 could be the low. We'll see. All right, we'll do one more question. We're a little over an hour here. So last question is from Ono Northy. Thoughts on institutional surpassing retail percentage held of Tesla? Eventually that will happen, but I could see it getting less because of the political divisiveness perception that Elon is creating. Like I don't think Elon's intentionally political. I think he's just speaking his mind, and it just happens that it's really upsetting one side of the political more than the other side of the political spectrum, obviously. So he's not trying to take a side. He's just speaking what he believes to be, true and right, for free speech and stuff. So it's unfortunate that the public perception is framing it as him being political and, conservative and far right or whatever they're going to say now. So I think institutional ownership, I don't see it. The value proposition for PE, yeah, the PEG and all that, the fundamentals gets more attractive, but the rate of alienation of institutional managers because of the controversy might be a little bit higher than the rate of the valuation getting better for a little while. So unless the stock price were to drop to like $100 a share or something, then maybe you have some deep value investors just all crowd in and overpower the rate of institutional investors not increasingly not wanting to touch it because of the divisiveness. I don't know. That's my thought. If there's like a formula. What do you think, man?
So, I mean, I was just looking up what percent do you think is held by institutions for Tesla and for Apple?
It's much lower. I mean, it's much lower for Tesla. Yeah, I mean, I saw that stat Gary Black's posted a few times. It's like I can't remember the specific, but it's like half or something ridiculous, right?
So
Half
that's
the
what I
price.
was expecting, but I just checked, and institutional ownership of Tesla was 45%, and for Apple it's 55%. So the
Wow.
difference was a lot lower than I was
And
expecting when I just did
that's
that quick check.
but that's as of what date do you think?
Let me
Like
see.
end of
Of course, I
Q3 or something?
I just closed it, so
Okay. Well, take it up. I mean, if that was the end of as of Q3, um, then I wouldn't be surprised if it's dropped from 48% to like 40% in the last couple months, with all this divisiveness. That's my guess. But if that was like as of November 30th, then maybe it hasn't dropped much at all. Maybe it's only gone to like 45% or something. I
oh,
don't know.
here it
That's my
is.
thought.
Let me see. I've got it back up here now. So it says it says December 13th, but I don't think that's right.
Maybe
They
that's
they
as
wouldn't.
because the people don't report that like real time.
Yeah,
It must
exactly.
be
So
quarterly filings for end of Q3 is what I'm thinking. Quarterly filings that came out in like November or something.
yeah, yeah. So it looks like most of these are as of end of Q3, so September 30th.
Yeah.
But there's a couple that have come out since then. So like BlackRock had a 13F, I think that came out in as of November 30th. So there's a few that are slightly different. So it's the most up to date data that I think we have.
Yeah, yeah. You could probably pay for something more realistic, real estimate, but who knows what's right. But that's the official data as of end of Q3. It's interesting. So I wonder what it'll be as of end of Q4. I'm gonna guess. What was it? 48 and 55%, the two, right? Is that what it was?
45 and 55.
45 and 55. I'm gonna guess end of Q4. Assuming nothing drastic changes, if Tesla's still around where it is now, and like Elon's still being a little divisive, I'm gonna guess it's gonna be 40% and 60%. I don't know. I could be completely wrong. What if it's the opposite? What if it goes to 50% and 50% or something? But
Yeah,
I'm
what
gonna
if
guess the direction goes up.
that would be interesting if retail is like has
Picking
sold
up the bag
for
at
the
these
most part.
lows. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, what if they're the ones jumping ship and actually institutional ownership has gone up just because
Oh, that's what
retail
I
has
mean. Yeah,
sold
yeah.
and
Yeah, yeah. What if institutionals buying at these lower
yeah.
prices and retail are just selling, driving the price down right now? Yeah, that's the opposite sort of what I'm speculating. Yeah, it could be that way too. I could be completely wrong. So we'll find out if it trends up or down between third and fourth quarter. It's a good signal for us to remember to go back to and look at.
Yep. Yeah, well, and Elon sold too, so that he sold 19.5 million shares, so that's a somewhat meaningful change too. That probably
2%
drove
or
down,
something. Right? Yeah, it was
yeah,
2%
something
of
like that.
ownership. Yeah. So all right. Well, that about ends it for us for now. And everyone, thanks for listening. Any new interesting tweets from Elon? No, nothing new. So we'll find out a week from now what's going on. I'm not gonna jinx it. So let's see.
All right,
Let's see where the market goes after the Fed tomorrow, and Roblox puts out their monthly metrics on the 15th. So that'll be good. And yeah, I'm getting shoulder surgery tomorrow, so I might be in a armband for the next few weeks.
you'll be in physical and financial pain.
Yeah, I'll be in some financial pain. So, all right,
All
all right,
right, well,
Matt. Good chatting.
good talk, Emmett, and
Thanks,
we'll do this
everyone.
again next week. Thanks, everyone.